I've been asked, Marty Leeds, are you a flat earther? And my response is, no, I'm not a flat earther. What am I? I'm a man who utilizes the scientific method.
Oh, Marty, we've talked about this. You don't understand science.
He is coming. Cover your butt.
For those of you who may not know who Marty is, about a year and a half ago, he made a video about the flat earth, and then I made a response video, which you can find on my channel if you all want to watch. Well, Marty is back at it again. And before I get started on why he's wrong this time, I need to do a little bit of housekeeping first.
Have a great weekend, man. What a nice email, huh? Respectful, non-confrontational, eager to ask questions. Too bad the rest of the comment sections and interactions on social media couldn't be so cordial.
Yes, Marty, people are asses on the internet, but you already know that. Yet here, you are insinuating as if the only vitriol comes from the scientifically minded towards the flat earth community. This is a two-way streak, Marty. You get as much name-calling from the flat earth community as you do from the scientifically minded. Both sides are filled with people who say a lot of naughty words, and that's okay. Here's the thing, Marty. Regardless of what words people use, that doesn't make them right or wrong. Now, there are some people who only use vitriol to try to make their point. That's called an ad hominem, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Besides that, even if you're called a fucking retard, Marty, as long as what they are saying proves you wrong, the fact that they called you a retard doesn't make their point any less valid. Now, in a perfect world, we would all just go by logic. We would all just listen to the argument. But we do not live in a perfect world, so I understand that you, along with many other people, get emotionally caught up in this. And you take these attacks very, very personally, and then completely ignore the actual argument that is being presented. You did this the last time I responded to you, where the only thing that you seemed to be able to focus on was the fact that I called you a bitch. So, I'm not going to call you a bitch this time around, because I want you to actually listen to the argument, not just have an emotional response to the names that people are calling you.
You know, it would be really great to get responses about this singular question of curvature that doesn't rely on ad hominem attacks or misdirections or calling people stupid or anything of the like.
Let's talk about ad hominem attacks real quick. An ad hominem attack is when you dismiss someone else's argument based entirely on an insult. So if I were to say, the earth isn't flat because Marty is an idiot, that would be an ad hominem attack. If I say, the earth isn't flat because you can't have two celestial poles on a flat earth, you idiot, that is me countering an argument and insulting you. There's a big difference there. The reason I bring this up is because this whole ad hominem attack thing is a flat earth cop-out. It's a cop-out for many other people, but let's talk about flat earth cop-outs here. Is that many, many people in the flat earth community will simply say that if you do not speak in entirely nice terms to them, they will refuse to listen to your argument. That is a cop-out. Like I said earlier, regardless of how many naughty words somebody used against you, does not make someone's argument more or less valid. This is only a way for flat earthers to refuse to look at evidence, to refuse to argue. This is cowardice, Marty. And so, like I said earlier, I'm going to try to refrain from calling you an idiot, only so that you can actually sit there and listen to the argument and respond to the argument. Because honestly, I find it far more slimy that people are willing to worm away from arguments just because somebody called them an idiot. Now, with that said, let me get this out of the way. Marty, you're a son of a... And if it weren't for your mom having to... with a cactus. Alright, now that we're done with that, let's move on. This is odd for my videos, so I feel like I have to mention it. This video will actually be structured in the way that you see on your screen. And I don't usually structure my videos like a middle school essay, but I have to today because Marty's video is very much so set up like a vlog, where he just sort of talks for 15 minutes. And he's all over the place, which if I were to follow his chronology of talking about things, I would be all over the place. And I feel like that actually muddles things up more than makes them clear. So I have decided to talk about things in the specific order, which means that clips from Marty's videos will not be in chronological order. You can look at the bottom right to see the timestamp of when I pulled something from Marty's video. And the reason that I want to make this clear from the get-go is I do not want anybody to be telling me that I'm taking Marty out of context. The timestamps are right there for you to look at, and I very much so understand that Marty isn't saying these things in chronological order, but he is saying these things about a certain topic.
Now, measuring the rotundity of the Earth seems like it would be a pretty basic scientific experiment, an open and shut case, really, especially in our modern day Google Earth, GPS, technologically advanced space age world.
You're right, it is very simple, and we know the shape of the Earth, and we know the size of the Earth. It is only flat earthers who seem to want to deny this. We have more or less known the exact circumference of the Earth for thousands of years now. And I know you don't want to talk about Eratosthenes, but it's kind of important.
Eratosthenes proved this shit a few thousand years ago, dude. I don't want to talk about any of that.
You see, what Eratosthenes did was that he found the circumference of the Earth using shadows. So he stuck a long pole in one part of the Earth, measured the shadow, and at the same time his assistant stuck a long pole in part of the Earth and measured its shadow at the same time. By doing a little bit of math, we got more or less something that resembles what we now have for the circumference of the Earth. The important thing to remember here is that Eratosthenes did this by using shadows. He didn't do this by observing something far away being obstructed by the curvature of the Earth. He did this with shadows, an entirely different method than what you're about to talk about.
So I will let Cody set up his experiment for you.
So I'm currently on the beach of the Great Salt Lake at Promontory Point, Utah. This here is a peninsula that extends out into the lake, but it's also one of the longest straight shots on a level surface, the surface of the lake, to a major landmark. You see over there is the Kennecott smokestack, about 35 miles away. It is the tallest man-made structure west of the Mississippi River and is almost as tall as the Empire State Building. So given that I know how tall the smokestack is, how high it is above the surface of the lake, and I know how far away it is, about 35 miles, I should be able to, by looking at it, estimate what the curvature of the Earth is.
Now, there is nothing wrong with what Cody is doing here. His experiment is sound. The only thing I want you to remember is that what Cody is doing is entirely different than what Eratosthenes did. Remember, Eratosthenes used shadows to measure the circumference of the Earth, and now Cody is going to use a tall building to measure the curvature of the Earth.
So from all this, Cody basically took how big the smokestack was, how far away it was, how much of it should be visible according to the sphericity of the Earth, calculated the miles and drop in curvature, and voila, basically seems to work out pretty well.
As it turns out, it does work pretty well. Something that you failed to mention is the numbers that Cody actually got. When Cody did his calculations using a telescope and a distant object, Cody got a radius of the Earth of 4,162 miles. Compare this to the actual measurement, which is 3,959 miles, and compare that to Eratosthenes, which was 3,978 miles. These numbers are all fairly close, and that's the important part. The thing that we're going to have to remember moving forward is that all three of these measurements are very, very close.
So that clip is actually from another flat earther, Rob Skiba, and what ODD-TV and Rob Skiba contest is that atmospheric lensing is partially causing the bottom of the buildings to be cut off, and thus the mirage and the atmospheric magnification or lensing are obscuring the bottom of the buildings, and that's what they're claiming.
Sparkane has already debunked this nonsense, so I'm not going to do it again in this video. But the gist of it is that Rob deliberately did the experiment wrong. Unless you have a literal lens between the observer and the object, this kind of lensing does not occur. Rob then went ahead did the experiment incorrectly on purpose in order to get the results that he wanted. For more information on this, there's a link to Sly's video in the description.
Is the mirage covering up anything here? I mean, you're looking at over 30 miles of mirage. So how much mirage are we actually seeing? Is the mirage simply covering up the bottom of the buildings? Is that what's going on? Is it the street and the buildings behind all of that mirage? Or is this the curvature of the Earth that we're seeing?
Let's pretend for a second that you are right. Let's pretend that it's a mirage that is covering the bottom portion of these buildings. Don't you find it that it's rather magical that a mirage knows exactly how much of the building to cover up so that it aligns with the curvature of the Earth? That I find rather remarkable. This is some very special mirage we got here. A mirage that is capable of hiding exactly the amount needed to make it look as if the Earth is curved. Now, the stupider people in the audience might say, well, the Freemasons have reverse engineered how much the mirage covers up, and then from that, they created the curvature formula. Alright, let's pretend that that's correct. Let's pretend that the powers that be saw ships going over the horizon, saw tall buildings in the distance get covered up by the horizon, and they knew that this was caused by a mirage, and so they created this curvature formula based on the mirage, so that whenever anyone else did this experiment, whenever anyone else went and looked at a building disappear, it would match up, just perfectly match up with this curvature formula, even though it's actually caused by a mirage. Let's pretend that all of that is correct. If all of that is correct, don't you find it rather remarkable that Aristophanes, using a completely different method for finding the circumference of the Earth, arrived at the same number? Isn't it remarkable that two separate methods for detecting the curvature of the Earth happen to line up? Isn't that remarkable, Marty? So we have two options here. Either the Earth is flat, and extraordinarily, when you measure how much of a distant object is covered by the mirage, it coincidentally matches with the size of the Earth given by a completely different experiment using sticks and shadows to measure the Earth. Or, and this might be a little crazy, Marty, the Earth is round, and there are two different independent methods that rely on two very different ways of measuring the Earth that, when tested out, give you the same result. One of these, Marty, is scientifically sound.
So ODD goes on to show two videos in his open letter response to Cody. The first one is from YouTuber Jenna Freda, and it's an incredible video of Jenna zooming her camera across a lake at a distance of over 30 miles. And as you can clearly see right here, you can see almost the entirety of the city with just a bit of the street obscured from view.
Wait. Didn't you just say that a mirage was what was obscuring the bottom of the building? But now, all of a sudden, a mirage is letting you see all the way to the sidewalk of the city? You need to make up your mind about this. This is very clearly a mirage. The last time I checked, this building here was not a rectangle. It was a dome. And what's with this little flap thing here? And what is going on with the CN tower? It looks all squished. You can easily tell that this is not a view from the bottom of the buildings to the top of the buildings. All of the buildings look squashed, and you can very clearly see a line where the mirage starts. This mirage explanation is very obviously an ad hoc explanation, because once you start actually applying it to different scenarios, it starts falling apart.
And then ODD shows another video of an independent balloon launch using a camera with no fisheye lens, so there's no distortion in the lens. And this balloon reaches elevations of over 121,000 feet, which is nearly 23 miles. and as we can clearly see, not an ounce of curvature is to be found.
Ah yes, the little Piggy balloon footage. I'd recognize that antenna anywhere. This is the same balloon footage where you get to see this. Huh, that's interesting. ODD TV didn't want to show this bit of footage. I wonder why. Let's pretend for a second that this footage has no lens distortion whatsoever, which it does, but we'll get back to that. And let's pretend that this is genuine evidence of the shape of the Earth. If you are going to do that, Marty, then you are going to have to accept that this bit of footage proves that the Earth is a globe, from the same source as you are willing to accept footage that proves that it's flat. You must accept that this is legitimate footage showing that the Earth is a globe. But here's the thing, Marty. This footage does have lens distortion. Do you want to know how I know that? Because look at the antenna, Marty. If you were to take just a little bit of time to examine this footage, you would clearly see that there is a little bit of distortion. It might not be as much as when you use a full-out wide-angle lens, but it is still there. This is why ODD decided to show you this bit of footage instead of this bit of footage from the same balloon launch. Because he is cherry-picking what he wants you to see. In all likelihood, he has seen the entirety of the footage and has seen the bits where it shows a curved Earth. But he is going to ignore that bit of footage because it does not align with what he already believes. So Marty, can you legitimately trust somebody who is willing to cherry pick what they show you to push their agenda?
How are we supposed to reconcile being able to measure curvature over a distance of 30 miles while standing on the ground, as Cody claims to do in his video, but yet when we climb nearly 23 miles high, we find a flat, level plane? We see neither curvature left to right, nor descending away from us. We see none at all.
If you want to see a true representation of the horizon from a high-altitude balloon with no distortion, there is an easy way to do that. Cara and I have already made a video about this, so you can go watch that on my channel. Pretty much how this works is all you have to do is make sure that the horizon is in the center of frame. Once you do this, there will be no distortion. The funny part is that ODD already knows this because he talked about it in one of his videos.
Now, what exactly is a fisheye lens? Let's find out real quick from an expert at lynda.com.
When this lens is arranged sort of straight onto the horizon, it actually it doesn't have any weird curvature or distortion. It just looks ultra wide. There might be a little bit of distortion on the edges, but it looks just super wide.
Of course, he will entirely ignore this and still show you footage where the horizon is below the center of frame, giving it a false concave curve. If we sit around and actually put the horizon in the center, we get this. This is from the little Piggy footage. The same footage, by the way, that you were willing to accept as evidence for a flat Earth. This is footage from Jeranism's high-altitude balloon. A flat earther's high-altitude balloon. Marty, since you were so willing to accept this footage earlier as evidence of a flat Earth, now that I have shown you how to see a true representation of the horizon, are you willing to change your mind, or are you going to stick to the flat Earth?
Here's a good question. How high does one have to ascend in height in order to actually see curvature? Like, there's got to be a mathematical formula for that. I mean, this is a good question. So if one's line of sight maintains focus at the horizon at all times, and we ascend and climb straight up, higher and higher and higher, how many miles up is it before we start seeing the actual curvature of the Earth and into deep space, if you will?
Well, Marty, if you're really that curious, here's Martimer81 explaining how high you have to go before you start seeing the Earth curve on the horizon.
Next, let's have our observer take a photograph using a 24mm wide-angle lens, giving him a 74-degree horizontal field of vision. What vertical angular distance should we expect between the center of the horizon and the horizon at either edge of the photo? Looking at, well, this, which simplifies to this. Plugging in alpha from before and beta equals 37 degrees, half of 74, this comes to 0.056 degrees. So the difference between alpha and gamma is 0.011 degrees.
And yet again, if the Earth is spherical, and help me understand this, shouldn't there be yet another general mathematical constant as to how far away the horizon will be? So if you're standing at sea level for, say, a 6-foot tall person, that's not me, 6-foot tall person standing at the sea level, should the horizon not be, generally speaking, a set distance away?
There is a way to find that out, and if you're curious, here's Red from Red's Rhetoric explaining how.
The next thing on our to-do list is to find the distance from our eyes to the horizon, and this is going to help us find the value of A later. Now the distance from our eyes to the horizon is going to be represented by E. Now to find E, we need to find the square root of r plus x to the second minus r to the second. And crunching this out gives us an answer of 15,838 feet.
If you need a little bit more explanation, here's 5 red pairs explaining the same thing.
Now I think you'll agree that anything beyond this point here, they're not going to be able to see it. Okay, they can see everything here, they can't see anything past here. Now, if I draw another line from the center out to the point with that, okay? So that's our formula. I'll zoom in on that so you can see it. That's our formula that tells us if you're standing on a sphere, a perfectly smooth sphere with a radius of r, and your eyes are at a height h above the surface of the sphere, the distance to the horizon will be given by the square root of r plus h all squared minus r squared. Okay?
If that's still not enough for you, Marty, this is an Earth curvature calculator, which also lets you know what the distance to the horizon is. If that's not enough for you, Marty, here's the Metabunk Earth curvature calculator, which also tells you the distance to the horizon. And if that's not enough for you, here's a website by a flat earther, which also has a distance calculator to the horizon. And you know what the best part is? That all 3 of these show the exact same results if you enter the same height. It's almost as if they line up with reality.
It's just one honest question. We have been given specific measurements for the size of the Earth and are told that the science behind heliocentrism is so sound that we are able to launch satellites 6 billion miles away to the outer edges of our solar system with this mathematics. If this mathematics is so sound for all of that, then determining the visible sphericity of the Earth should not be that difficult. These mathematics should not be that elusive.
It's not elusive, Marty. I have just shown you 3 videos of people doing the math. I have just shared with you 3 websites that will gladly show you the math on how to find exactly what you are asking for. The only thing that you need to do, Marty, is get up and actually look for this stuff. Stop pretending as if you have some mystery that science cannot solve. It has, and the results are widely available. But all you have to do is take your fingers out of your ears and listen to the answers that people are giving you.
I'm having a very, very difficult time reconciling this and this with this and this.
Here's an idea on how this might become a little bit easier for you, Marty. How about instead of going to ODD, who deliberately cherry picks what he wants you to see, how about instead of going to him, you yourself learn how to look at an image that uses a wide-angle lens, or even an image that doesn't? Why don't you go learn how lenses work? Then you will understand that what ODD is showing you is false. He is deliberately misleading you, Marty. You would not have this problem if instead of listening to people blindly, you bothered to do the research yourself.
This isn't a conversation about ideologies or belief systems. This is a conversation about science.
No, Marty. This is a conversation about an ideology. The Flat Earth ideology. The Flat Earth faith, mind you. Because if this was a question of science, if this was genuinely a question that could be answered with research, there would be no such thing as a flat earther. We already know the answers to the questions that you are asking, Marty. We have already done the research. And I'm not just talking about scientists in their white lab coats sitting in their ivory towers that conspiratards refuse to listen to. I am talking about the very community that you are a part of. Throughout this video, I have mentioned name after name of YouTuber who has actually done research on this. People like Red, 5 Red Pears, Soundly, Martimer, who have all sat down, written out the math, and explained it so that people like you can have the answers to the questions you are asking. There are people like Dazza the Cameraman, Wolfie6020, and Soundly, who have gone out and taken pictures and videos of the Earth in order to show the Earth's sphericity. All of this research has been done, Marty. All you have to do in order to understand it is to take your fingers out of your ears and listen. If this was not a conversation about ideologies, then you would already know the answers to the questions you are asking.
And I would hope that asking the community at large for our best minds to be put towards one simple question like, can we measure curvature, isn't so outlandish as to deserve unruly attacks and slander.
Marty, the reason that you get unruly attacks and slanders is because you sit around and pretend as if none of the things that you are asking have been demonstrated to you. You sit around and pretend as if science has absolutely no idea about the shape of the Earth. You sit around and pretend to know that NASA has faked space while providing absolutely no evidence for such a thing. You get attacks because everything has already been explained over and over and over again. It gets tiresome, Marty, to have to point out the same thing over and over again. It gets tiresome to have people go out and do real research on the shape of the Earth, only to have some flat earther come out and call it all fake with absolutely no evidence. Marty, it gets tiresome to deal with flat earthers. After watching your video over and over again to make this video, I have come to the conclusion, Marty, that you are one of 3 people. You are either a complete and utter idiot. You are so stupid that you do not understand the math that has been clearly laid out for you. You are so stupid that you do not understand that when someone says that the atmosphere is like a lens, it does not mean that it's literally a lens. You are so stupid as to not realize that all lenses curve an image. You are stupid enough to be a flat earther. You could also not be an idiot. You could actually be rather smart, Marty, and completely understand everything that I have told you. That you completely understand math. That you completely understand how a mirage works. That you completely understand how the scientific method works. And you don't care. You could just be some slimy fuck who is willing to be deliberately stupid in order to promote their own ideas. You could be doing nothing more than taking advantage of the gullible. Or, and this is the one that I think you are, Marty, You could just be somebody who is gullible. Somebody who does not bother to actually do their own research. You have already demonstrated to me that you are willing to accept what other people present to you without question. You unquestionably accepted ODD's images from a high-altitude balloon without actually going through the whole footage to see the spots where it looks like the Earth is a globe. You blindly accepted the photo of Toronto and said that you could see all the way to the street, even though the buildings are very obviously distorted and you can clearly see that it's a mirage. You have uncritically accepted every one of these claims. I do not know why you do this, Marty, but I think that is the camp that you're in. If you genuinely think that the truth is sacred, like you claim it is, if you truly care about the truth, then there is a very simple solution to your problem, Marty. All you have to do is be a genuine skeptic for once, and to get your head out of the sand and stop surrounding yourself with the people who will only tell you what you want to hear. Actually sit and listen to the critics. And maybe after you do that, you might learn something, Marty.